Here are the top stories for today, August 23, 2021. The Philippines administers its 30th million COVID-19 vaccine, with 13 million Filipinos now being fully vaccinated. And as the target population for herd immunity reaches 17%, over 5 million more COVID-19 jabs are on their way to the country by next week. The Budget Department and the Department of Health coordinate to release the special risk allowance of healthcare workers. And 40 more Filipinos escaped the chaos in Afghanistan, with foreign affairs officials scrambling to get dozens more home. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Philippines has reached 30 million COVID-19 jabs administered nationwide, another milestone in the COVID-19 vaccination program. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 led a ceremonial administration of the 30 millionth jab and counting to mall employees and Rizaleños at the SM City San Mateo in Rizal Province on Monday. NTF Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said over 13 million Filipinos are now fully vaccinated, representing 17% of the total target population for herd immunity. Galvez also said the government expects the delivery of over 5 million vaccine doses next week. These comprise of about 3 million doses of Sinovac, 1.8 million doses of Moderna, and over 300,000 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech. The government targets to vaccinate 70% of the country's total population by the end of this year. MMDA Chair Benjamin Abalos Jr. meanwhile cautioned the public against the highly transmissible Delta variant. He also said most people who died due to COVID-19 were unvaccinated. The Department of Health, or DOH, said that it seems that extensive and broad lockdown is not effective anymore in the Philippines. In today's virtual briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said that this was their finding after analyzing data from the different quarantine periods, including the 4 times that several areas in the country had been placed under ECQ. Vergere said that granular lockdowns improved contact tracing, and shortening the period from detection to isolation would deliver the desired result.
When we were trying to analyze together with our experts, looks like it's not really being effective anymore, no? So although alam natin malaking bagay yan to restrict ang mapangmalakihan, pero sa tingin namin, nung wini-weigh namin ang mga maaring mangyari, mas magiging effective at mas magiging advantageous para po sa ating lahat kung bababaan natin ng konti, pero mag-granular lockdowns tayo at i-improve po natin yung mga factors dun sa PDITR natin. So kaya po yun yung naging rekomendasyon. And we all know that in most of the countries, no, all over the world, nakikita ho natin na unti-unti rin naman nagbubukas sila ng kanilang ekonomiya, but still they have this kind of restrictions locally. So yun po ang gusto nating tignan, and as to the health side sa amin sa DOH, as long as we can be able to have this active case finding, we can be able to improve the vaccine coverage, shorten the duration from detection to isolation, compliance to minimum public health standards are enforced. Yun pong MECQ plus this is already something that we can rely on as long as all of us will continue to cooperate para po bumaba ang mga kaso.
Meanwhile, the DOH reports there are no additional cases yet of the COVID-19 Lambda variant. Vergere said that the lone case, a 35-year-old woman from Central Visayas, has already recovered. All close contacts of the patients tested negative for COVID-19. Nevertheless, the DOH and the concerned LGUs continue to conduct extensive contact tracing.
So ito pong ating Lambda variant na na-detect, this is still a variant of interest. So ibig sabihin, hindi pa ho nabibigyan ng WHO ng classification na variant of concern, meaning yung characteristics po ng virus hindi pa ho nakakapagbigay ng significant health impact sa mga populasyon. Kaya ngayon po yung pagbabakuna natin, isa po yan sa magiging paraan natin para maproteksyonan tayo kung kahit na ano pong variants ang meron tayo dito sa ating bansa.
Give some breathing space for COVID-19 responders. This is the message of President Rodrigo Duterte to the Commission on Audit or COA, saying their untimely audit may distract the government agencies from their work. The President asked COA to at least start its audit at the end of the year to give the agencies ample time to collate and validate documents. He also wants COA to refrain from concluding without getting the side of the offices involved.
We are fighting a war against an enemy na hindi natin nakikita. Give them an enough elbow room to move. At saka yung sabi ninyong documentation, alam ninyo, pandemic, skeletal force lahat.
All police commanders are urged to coordinate with the local government units in Metro Manila to ensure that outside exercises are being done according to the existing health protocols. Outdoor exercises, which were earlier stopped during the imposition of enhanced community quarantine in the region, are now allowed under the less restrictive modified ECQ from August 21 to 31. These fitness activities can be done outside from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said police personnel should be fully aware of every LGU's regulations so there would be no confusion on their enforcement. Overseas Filipino workers who get vaccinated in the country will now be allowed to enter Hong Kong starting August 30. The Department of Labor and Employment says the Hong Kong government has already acknowledged the certificates issued and validated by the Bureau of Quarantine. The Hong Kong government earlier refused to honor the Philippines' vaccination certificates as they did not come from a single source. As such, the BOQ, through the efforts of the Labor Department and the Philippine Consulate in Hong Kong, prepared a draft vaccination certificate bearing the passport details of the OFWs as requested by Hong Kong. Hong Kong Immigration said it will honor the vaccination certificates issued by the BOQ for incoming OFWs pending the inclusion of those details in the yellow card. Some 3,000 OFWs who are awaiting deployment to Hong Kong are said to benefit from this development. The Department of Health, or DOH, assures that the release of funds for healthcare workers as well as the procurement of critical medical supplies are underway. The DOH says it is currently in close coordination with the Department of Budget and Management for the release of the said funds amid reports that some healthcare workers have not received their Special Risk Allowance or SRA. The fund will be sourced from the 13.5 billion pesos appropriated funds related to COVID-19. DOH Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega earlier reported that some 8.8 billion pesos have already been released for the SRA of public and private healthcare workers who are in contact with COVID-19 patients. The first COVID-19 case has been detected at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Athletes Village on Thursday, just days before the start of the Games. Local media reported that the case is game-related personnel and not an athlete. The Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games is set to begin next Tuesday with nearly 4,400 athletes from 160 teams taking part. The Paralympics will be held without spectators due to rising COVID-19 infections in Japanese cities, including Tokyo. Meanwhile, a Filipino para-athlete and some coaches and officials have tested positive for COVID-19. Philippine Paralympic Committee President Mike Barredo confirmed the news in a statement but did not identify the patients. The para-athlete will no longer be able to participate in the Paralympics while they are under isolation. Barredo meanwhile assured the Filipino delegation will give their best to bring honor and glory to our country. The Tokyo Paralympics is scheduled from August 24 to September 5. Still to come, the PNP threatens penalties against public utility vehicle drivers who continue to disobey health and transport protocols. And 40 more Filipinos escaped the chaos in Afghanistan, with foreign affairs officials scrambling to get dozens more home. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
If you are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective. I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. The Philippine National Police has warned drivers of public utility vehicles to strictly follow the minimum public health standards or else face citation tickets. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said police forces have already been instructed to issue traffic violation tickets to the operators and drivers of PUVs, especially in Metro Manila, Bulacan, Laguna, Rizal, and Cavite. He said although PUV riders will not be arrested for violating safety and health protocols, the issued citation tickets will tarnish their records at the LTO. The PNP issued the warning amid reports of blatant quarantine violations in passenger buses and jeepneys, which include overloading, violations of health standards, and violations of allowed passenger capacity. Eleazar also said random checks will be conducted to ensure that the no travel policy on non-authorized persons outside residence is strictly implemented. Vaccination efforts continue in several provinces as the Department of Health in Northern Mindanao intensifies measures to prevent the spread of the Delta and other COVID-19 variants. More on this from Marita Moahe.
The Department of Health Region 10 is taking proactive steps to contain and control the spread of COVID-19 variants in northern Mindanao. The DOH said they immediately sent samples of close contacts of Delta variant cases back to the Philippine Genome Center. Local government units will also be advised immediately so they can conduct more tracing and isolation of suspected carriers of the virus. As of August 21, DOH-10 has recorded 15 cases of Alpha, 34 Beta, and 31 Delta variants. In Tarlac, over 325,000 residents here have been vaccinated as the provincial government ramps up inoculation against COVID-19. About 182,000 residents have received their first dose, while over 143,000 others are fully vaccinated. Governor Susan Yap assured Tarlaceños that the provincial government is doing its best efforts to curb the rising cases of COVID-19. The province is under general community quarantine until August 31. In Zamboanga City, the City Health Office announced that over 90,000 residents from different priority groups have been fully vaccinated. Nearly 14,000 of them belong to the A1 group or medical frontliners. The total represents 12.9% of the 700,000 target population. DOH Region 9 has so far received 215,400 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. Meanwhile, DOH Region 10 clarified that COVID-19 and not the vaccine killed a family of 4 in Laguindingan, Misamis Oriental, contrary to a circulating Facebook post. Based on the gathered information, the family members were not inoculated on July 26 because they were feverish during the pre-assessment. About 10 in the family, including some neighbors, were infected. The family also had a history of visiting a wake in Barangay Patag, Cagayan de Oro City, and also had a birthday celebration. The community where the family resides is under granular lockdown. The DOH then saw the need to answer the Facebook post to eliminate hesitancy on getting vaccinated. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
Some 40 Filipinos were able to exit Afghanistan safely amid the tension brought by the Taliban takeover in the country. The Department of Foreign Affairs reported on Saturday that at least 30 were flown out of Kabul for Pakistan with the assistance of the Philippine Embassy in Islamabad. 10 others were able to exit for different destinations, 8 of whom are currently in Dubai, while each one is in Doha and Paris. More Filipinos are reported to have been evacuated to the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, the 5 Filipinos assisted by the Indonesian government on Friday are in Jakarta waiting for their flight home. A total of 158 Filipinos have left Afghanistan since the Taliban fighters seized control of its capital, Kabul. For emergencies, Filipinos in Afghanistan are advised to contact the Philippine Embassy in Pakistan through their social media accounts or email. President Rodrigo Duterte showed his commitment in the fight against corruption as he announced the dismissal of National Electrification Administration Administrator Edgardo Masongsong. The Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission conducted the investigation and recommended Masongsong's dismissal. Masongsong was appointed administrator of NEA in November 2016. President Duterte admitted during his address that eliminating corruption is hard because it is endemic, but his government is trying its best to reduce it. Fighting corruption and eliminating illicit drug trade and criminality were the president's major campaign pledges when he ran for presidency in 2016. The president, who believes in outright removal of erring personnel and officials, vowed to address corruptions in the bureaucracy in the remaining months of his term. In our business news, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry successfully launched on Friday the Barangay-Based Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program, or BBEMP. CCCI President Felix Taguam said that BBEMP's long-term goal is to boost the city's local economy by supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. Taguam said this is meant to reboot and reformat businesses to recover and build back in a better position amid the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. About 120 participants joined the program launch, composed of Cebu City officials, barangay representatives, CCCI trustees, and officers from the Departments of Trade and Industry, Agriculture, and Science and Technology, among others. CCCI, together with Famcor Franchise, has started the BBEMP Batch 1 online class Module 1 on entrepreneurial mindset amidst the pandemic realities this week. Registration of target program participants is still ongoing. Interested MSMEs, displaced workers, and OFWs interested in opening a business may visit the BBEMP's Facebook page or contact the CCCI BBEMP Secretariat. Up next, People's champ Manny Pacquiao says loved by Filipinos despite losing to Cuba's Yordenis Ugas. And a village in General Santos City breaks away from poverty and insurgency with the government's help. We're back after a quick break. Stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Manny Pacquiao remained as the people's champ for Filipinos even after he lost to Cuban contender Yordenis Ugas on Sunday. Joyce Cudis has the story.
Manny Pacquiao will always be the Filipino people's champ despite failing to reclaim the WBA super welterweight belt. Malacanang made this remark after Pacquiao's unanimous decision loss to Cuban Yordenis Ugas for the super welterweight title on Sunday, Philippine time at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said that public support to Pacquiao's boxing career has always been unwavering, including his latest fight against Ugas. He said the 42-year-old Filipino boxer will always hold a special place in the hearts of every Filipino. The ruling PDP Laban party also expressed pride in Pacquiao for putting up a good fight against the 35-year-old Cuban fighter. The Armed Forces of the Philippines also said it is still proud of Pacquiao for showing perseverance despite the odds during the match. Pacquiao was supposed to challenge American boxer Errol Spence Jr., but the latter pulled out of the fight after suffering an eye injury. Ugas, who holds the championship that Pacquiao was stripped of earlier this year due to inactivity, stepped in as a replacement. The 42-year-old Pacquiao looks sluggish in his first bout in 2 years, and the 35-year-old Ugas banked on his reach advantage to connect jobs. Pacquiao eventually lost via unanimous decision. Boxing promoter and manager Brico Santig of Highland Promotions said Pacquiao failed to show his old forms as he lost to Ugas, noting that he is getting older. For referee judge Silvestre Abainza, it is time for Pacquiao to retire, saying the boxer turned senator has already brought so much honor for the country. Pacquiao's defeat was his 8th in 72 fights with 62 wins, including 39 knockouts that made him one of the most decorated fighters in the world. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Joyce Cudis.
Silay City in Negros Occidental joined the mourning for a soldier who died during a clash with communist terrorists in Barangay Capitan Ramon on August 20. The remains of Private First Class Christopher Alada, a Philippine Army 79th Infantry Battalion member, have been brought home to his family in Badiangan, Iloilo on Saturday. Alada died following a firefight with about 10 CPP-NPA rebels near Hacienda Raimunda. Mayor Mark Goles thanked the fallen soldier for his sacrifice, service, valor, and for protecting and defending the nation. Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel J.J. Javines commended his men for their swift response to the reported presence of the communist terrorists and lauded the locals for their cooperation. 2 NPA rebels were also killed during the said encounter. They were identified as Kerima Lorena Tariman, a poet and former editor of the Philippine Collegian, official student publication of the University of the Philippines Diliman, as confirmed by the NPA, and a certain Pabling. In a separate statement, the 3rd Infantry Division described Tariman and Pabling as notorious terrorists. The two belong to the Northern Negros front of the NPA's Comite Region Negros, Cebu, Bohol, and Siquijor. Public Affairs Chief Major Zenon Pancito III said the duo were involved in a series of extortion and intimidation activities in the area, including the burning of construction equipment in April. Pancito said Tariman is not a people's hero as she came to Negros to revive the influence of the NPA front and exploit the Negrenses. The Philippine Postal Corporation announced that it has delivered more than 1 million Philippine identification cards as of August 16. The Philippine Statistics Authority has partnered with PhilPost and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas for the delivery, production, and personalization of the PhilID cards. The number of PhilIDs delivered is expected to increase in the coming days as the PSA and BSP have dispatched over 3 million cards to PhilPost for delivery. The door-to-door delivery of the PhilID cards by PhilPost is the 3rd and final step of the PhilSys registration following the online demographic registration and biometrics process. To enable registrants to use their PhilSys IDs, pending the delivery of their card. The PSA plans to launch within the year the PhilSys Mobile ID, an alternative version of the physical card. A tribal community in General Santos City is starting to break off from long years of poverty and neglect as more government services are finally reaching the area. Datu Fulong Dan Alim Blaan chieftain and head of the Indigenous Peoples Alliance movement said Barangay Mabuhay has been reaping the gains of projects implemented through the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. Among the projects was a farm-to-market road that connects farm areas in Barangay Mabuhay to the local markets. The village will also be a part of an expanded production project implemented by the National Dairy Authority using 100 dairy goats. The National Commission on Indigenous Peoples also facilitated the installation of water pumps in upland portions of their village. The city government also helped establish a Kasfala Hall, a meeting place for tribal residents used for resolving issues. Alim said the Blaan have no reason to be duped by the NPA as they are assured of a brighter future. Marawi City and several more school districts have received risograph machines from the Bangsamoro government to help teachers improve the implementation of the modular training program used amid the pandemic. More on this from Claire Gighe.
The Bangsamoro government, through the Office of Member of the Parliament or MP Maysara Dandamun Latif, turned over risograph machines to 28 school districts in Lanao del Sur, including Marawi City. The procurement of the risograph machines was funded under the Transitional Development Impact Fund of MP Latif to augment the capacity of schools to print materials for the modular learning program. Latif said her office specially allocated a budget for the machines as she learned that these were not given a budget. Each machine can print at least 200,000 pages. Aside from the risograph machines, inks for printing were also distributed to the school districts. The MP said that apart from the 28 risograph machines, 7 more will also be received by the remaining school districts in the coming days.
I hope na itong ating turnover today ay magtulong sa inyo, ma-inspire pa kayo na gawin niyo yung best niyo para sa education ng mga kasama.
Schools Division Superintendents of recipient school divisions expressed their gratitude for the risograph machines, saying that the donation is a realization of the promise of the BARM government.
We in the LDS school family will make sure that we will only produce the kalidad na alternative learning materials. We will see to it that no ink, no papers go to waste so that this risograph machine will serve their purpose. That is to give quality education.
For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gigha of the Philippine Information Agency Ligan City Information Center.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The Philippines administers its 30th million COVID-19 vaccine with 13 million Filipinos now being fully vaccinated. And as the target population for herd immunity reaches 17%, over 5 million more COVID-19 jabs are on their way to the country by next week. The Budget Department and the Department of Health coordinate to release a special risk allowance of healthcare workers. And 40 more Filipinos escaped the chaos in Afghanistan, with foreign affairs officials scrambling to get dozens more home. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe, everyone.